You're listening to the Things You Don't Hear in Church podcast, a show where your hosts, Derry and Ethan, discuss the controversial topics often avoided by the church. They also discuss culture, society, and everyday goofs. And now, Derry and Ethan.
You may have heard Derry and Ethan. In fact, it's actually Jeremy and
Derry.
In fact, it's Jeremy and James. Or,
No, it's
what did you say?
Pethan and Barry.
It's
Pethan and
Ari
Barry.
and
Pethan
Deethan.
and Barry.
Pethan and
That's because I'm using the letter of your last name, the first letter of your last
Oh,
name.
don't tell me my last
The first
name.
letter of my last name.
Obama's gonna come get me.
Barry and Pethan here
What's up?
to talk to you about
We're very excited.
the Lord.
We're very excited to talk to you.
Yes.
Yo, this stupid thing.
Ethan's mic isn't broken, or his mic stand.
No, that's Mike's in. Amazon's jank, bro. Whatever. We're fine.
We're doing
Fixed
good.
it.
He's gonna hold it the whole time. It's great.
Once again, this show is brought to you by this blue cup. It's not actually true. It's a inanimate object. It can't do anything.
For everybody on video, they can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna be talking about youth groups. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Youth group is so unique to where you are. In some ways, but in some ways it's very stereotypical. I know both those statements contradict each other, but like some youth groups are very unique, but there's some commonalities between like most all youth groups that everybody kind of can relate to, right? The kind of kids that go, the kind of youth leaders you can have, stuff like that. There's TikToks all over about them and about like the stereotypes and the bad and the good and stuff like that. And so we wanted to talk today about maybe the problems that there have been around youth groups in the past, the way they've been done incorrectly, maybe ways they've been done well, and then maybe some solutions to those as well. I feel like a lot of my friends grew up going to youth group. I grew up going to youth group, and I liked it a lot. Of course, no one's perfect, right? I know you grew up going to youth group. No.
Some people might be perfect.
You grew up going to youth group, so I think we both have a lot to say about it, and it's a pretty popular topic, I think, to talk about. So let's go.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, before we get super into it, were you ever a youth group leader?
Yeah.
What kind of youth group leader were you?
Junior high.
What kind of youth group leader? Like, were you like the I'm gonna tell this kid to do something reckless, or were you like, hey guys, you should probably stop doing that?
Middle of the road.
Middle of the road.
Yeah.
Were you sassy with the students?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I had some students one time we were playing dodgeball, like every youth group, and these three girls were like standing outside, and I was like, "You're not playing?" They're like, "No." And this girl's like, "I did not get all dressed up and nice to come get hit in the face by a ball." And I said,
where is it, junior high or high school?
"Yeah, they're like sixth graders or
that's
eighth
such
graders."
a 6th grade answer.
I was like, "Well, just don't be bad." And then she kind of looked at me like, "What?"
Be better.
And this girl's
Don't get
like,
hit.
"Yeah." This other girl's like, "I don't want to." I was like, "It's okay. You don't always have to have."
Jesus didn't want down the cross for you either.
I'm pretty sure
Go out
that's
there
what I
and
said.
throw
I'm
the
pretty sure
ball.
like I might have verbatim said that. And then I was like, the third girl's like, "My legs are broken." I was like, "It's okay. We can heal you in Jesus' name. Like, you're fine."
That's so funny.
And she was just like, and all of them like, "What the heck?" They're just fun. It's just fun to mess with them.
That's hilarious. Yeah, youth group is so much fun, especially for leaders.
Yeah.
It can be hilarious. Yeah.
Oh
But
man,
it is definitely a struggle.
I
sometimes,
love staffing youth camps.
too. Yeah.
You know, like they're just so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I don't think students understand how much fun leaders have, like at those things, because we're always the one like handing down the rules and
Right.
stuff like that.
Like I take off work to go to this thing.
But like a lot of the rules are so we can have fun a lot of the time. Like
Yeah.
the games for the kids are like they're games for the kids, but like really like they're games that we can like destroy kids at.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it's really like for our counseling. Like we don't go get counseling, so we have a youth group. Just kidding.
It's very interesting.
So I went to this one church camp, and I was a leader, and it was everything about getting points. It's like obviously find Jesus, but the competitive nature was like, hey, get as many points as you can, right? And so if one of your students is missing, you got docked 100 points for every minute every student was late. So if you had 3 students who were like 5 minutes late, you're losing like 1,500 points. 1,500 points. It's like, and my team won first place of the whole camp by 200 points.
Whoa.
So it's not like it's like
2
close.
minutes late. Dang,
Yeah. And I remember I was like, where's Zeke? Or something like that. I was like, where's this kid? And they're like, he's in the room. I was like, he's in the room? And they're like, yeah. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm an adult and me sprinting there's gonna be tiring. And as I was like sprinting back to the cabin as I walk, I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I can't find the water bottle. And so every team had their own water bottle.
Whoa.
And if you didn't bring the team water bottle, you lost points. And he was responsible for it. And he's like, I can't find it. I was like, what do you mean? But I walked in and he was putting his socks on. I was like, why are you putting your socks on now? And he's like, I love this kid so much.
I'm in 6th grade. You're overwhelming me.
Yeah, he like grew up to be a really good guy, but he's just like, the last time I knew him, at least, he was awesome. But I was like, and he was awesome then too. But I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I couldn't find the bottle. So I found it. I was like, let's go. And he's like, I don't want to run. I was like, I don't care.
That's great.
We just barely made it, but I was like super stressed for like a few minutes.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, man, youth groups are crazy for sure. And I think it all depends on your leaders that you have too.
Yeah.
On the how it varies, right?
Yeah, and just so you guys know, we're not like we said, we volunteered with youth groups, we volunteered at camps, but these volunteering, it wasn't like I did it for a few weeks so I'm authoritative. Like, at least in my experience, I did a 6-month internship at a youth group before I came here to staff. I did youth ministry from like 18 to like 20 before I joined YWAM. We staff YWAM. We get a lot of 18-year-olds that come through. And so
fresh out of youth group.
I'd say we're pretty qualified in some regard to speak a little bit about this and shed some light.
I just put that connection together, that the students that come here are like fresh out of youth group.
Yeah.
Thinking about me fresh out of youth group, because I didn't go to YWAM until like 4 years after youth group.
Yeah, I went at like 2. No, wait, when did you go? How old are you?
Ooh, 21.
Okay.
I stopped when I was 17.
Okay, yeah, I stopped when I was 18.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Wow.
So today we're talking about youth groups and maybe the problems that they have now, or that they've maybe veered toward, or problems they can have had in the past.
And like, what is the role of youth group?
Yeah.
Right. That's a big question.
What's an effective youth group?
Because I think, and I don't mind starting with that. Do you mind starting with that?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So like, a lot of parents have an idea sometimes, and not every parent, but a good amount of parents, I think. Excuse me, I got a burp. That's embarrassing. I would say a good amount of parents out there, if they're not very intentional with their spiritual walk, it's very easy for them to make like the youth group or the youth pastor like, oh, I want you to disciple my kid, right? And so I think one of the issues with youth group, maybe issue is strong, but one of the things that's difficult about it is that it can be that the parent might expect the youth pastor to be the one who's going to be like full-time discipler of their kid. And so if their kids are bad, I've seen parents, or I've heard of parents who like have been mad at the youth pastor, like, what are you doing in youth group? My kid's not good. Yeah. And the question's like, yo, your kid comes here for like 2 hours a week. I don't have control. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. And then the question that and biblically the responsibility of spirituality and spiritual growth and development for a child, and that's what youth groups are. Kids are. Yeah, youths are children. Sorry if you're in a youth group right now. I'm not a child. It's okay.
You're a child.
we love you, but you're a child.
The Bible says to have faith like a child. So
yeah, stay childish.
You're in good hands.
That's a youth group trendy thing. Stay childish. Yeah. You just be talking about childlike faith. Anyways, biblically, like the parents are the ones who are supposed to be discipling their kids. The Bible says, teach your kid the way he should go, and when he's old, he'll not depart from it. That's not saying that like if you raise your kid right, he'll 100% be a Christian, because everyone comes to a place where they get to make their own decisions. But there's an aspect where the kids' spirituality and discipleship is on the role of the parent. And absolutely. And biblically, if we're going to get into roles and marriage in a way, the father, the husband, is the one who's like supposed to be the pastor of his family, in a way, and he's the head authority in the family dynamic. And so
we're getting real deep into opinions right now. But
well, I don't think it's an opinion, but
I know, I agree with you. I'm just saying it's another topic that we're not going to go into right now.
And that's okay. So then the caveat, it's like, oh, do single mothers not have pastors? No, that's not true. Okay, there's a lot of grace. We'll talk about.
If you're complementarian, this is your view.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in another episode. Yeah. But as far as it is right now, the parents are supposed to be the nurturers of their kids' spirituality. And then the aspect is, and I kind of like looking at all these different side trails, but then the question is like, what if the parents aren't saved? And the kid is
very
going to
new
youth
Christians.
Yeah, and the kid is going to youth groups. There's a lot of people who the parents don't necessarily know Jesus. They just want their kid to be in a good environment, so they send them there. Yeah, which is a good thing. And so that's why it's kind of hard, because like because youth pastor is not a thing in the Bible, right? It's just pastor and like house church, and like it was a community living.
In Proverbs, it's not like youth pastors train your congregation to not throw water balloons at the girls' heads.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, like, youth group is like well, they should throw water balloons. That'd be hilarious. Not actually, they shouldn't. Not like they should, but they'd be like, don't do that. But that was so fun.
One of our youth leaders threw a dodgeball at a guy one time and missed. And this man played professional baseball. Or something like that. He could throw 98 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Baseball. And he threw those like hard, like big rubber, like dodgeballs.
The 90s, that 90s dodgeball. Yeah.
No forgiveness in that ball at all.
Now they got all
hit a girl
ones.
in the face, broke her nose. Instantly broke her nose.
Oh my gosh, that's so terrible.
He was feared.
Yeah.
But he's awesome. He's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Really cool guy.
But scared.
But scary. But really cool guy.
I had a friend who played college baseball, and we had a water balloon like game in a youth group, and he like had this. He also could throw like that, and he chucked this water balloon at my back, and I was an adult, and I got hit in the back. And I was like, "Bro, you're hitting students with this? Like my back is red. Like that's
so funny.
messed up, dude." I was like, "Calm down."
Man.
He was also a youth pastor.
At the end of this, we should just talk about the best youth group games.
Oh
At the very end of
my
the segment.
gosh! Yeah,
I can already think of like some of the best.
Yeah,
ones.
me too. I'm not gonna waste.
We'll talk about that at the end. Though.
Yeah, we'll give you the content that you want.
Yeah.
First.
So we're talking about like getting back to it real fast. That it's sort of the parent's job, right, to disciple, to grow, to lead their child in the way you should go over the youth pastor, right? The youth pastor is there to help and be a helper, maybe where you can't be, to provide a space for discipleship and community, right? So where kids can be with other Christian kids that are like them, to be in that community space and pursuing God together, being mentored by other adults that are maybe a little closer in age sometimes to them than their parents are.
Ideally, like a big brother, big sister type thing. You know, as far as the leaders. You know, the leader could be like a mature 19-year-old working with some 17-year-olds.
It depends, yeah. Most of the leaders that I had were all like mid-20s or later. But yeah, it definitely depends. Definitely an older person, though, that's older than them, that's pursuing the Lord, that can teach them and disciple them, right?
Yeah.
But the point is that that's not a substitute for what you do as a parent, right? And we don't want to take away from how hard that is as a parent. Obviously, we don't know because we're not parents, but it's super hard, right? You work all day, and then you got a ton of interpersonal stuff to deal with when you get home. And once you deal with all that, you kind of want to like relax.
And maybe you got to deal with your kids' homework too, you know?
Yeah, your kids going through homework and stuff. It's hard to find time a lot of the times to like get that biblical discipleship in. But I think if you made it a practice, just off the top of my head, if you make it a practice in the daily life as you're doing homework to instill biblical values, as like you're going through interpersonal problems in the kid's life to instill values, you can disciple that way as well. But I think it's different for every parent. Everybody has a different job. Every parent has a different kid as well. So not necessarily giving advice on that. Rather just saying it is still a parent's job, not the youth pastor's job, to disciple their child.
Right.
So that can be a pitfall of some youth groups and some parents, is that either the youth group will try to take all the responsibility for doing that, or the parent will try to put all the responsibility onto the youth group for doing that.
Yeah. And so I think what needs to be defined probably in a lot of churches, I know in the church that I was helping out at, I would have, and I think the youth pastor did a really good job of communicating with the parents about like, hey, here's a series we're going to go through. Here's what we're teaching your kids.
Which is really important.
And he'd like send emails, he'd call parents, and it was like really good. But I think there should be like a church discussion from the head of the executive church pastor, and be like, hey, like, just so you know, here's what youth group is. Here's what it is not. You know, what it is for a place for your kids to find community, find ideally a good godly group of friends, and have fun while pursuing God, and a place where because like not every like 12-year-olds to like 15 and 17-year-olds, they spend all day in school listening to lectures. They don't want to come and listen to a sermon necessarily, which isn't bad.
Most of them, no.
Yeah. And, you know, then they're like, oh, you just got to sit through it. And then they're so fried at the end of the day, just need to relax.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm coming with the idea that most youth groups happen on Wednesday night.
Right.
And so.
Wednesday, Thursday for me.
I went to a Tuesday night that one time. That was nice.
Wow, that's weird.
But Thursday's not.
Too soon.
Tuesday's too soon. I was just here. A day and a half on Sunday.
Probably a day and a half because, like, well, it depends on when it's Sunday.
Right. But but yeah, so it's just like it should be a place of finding community and instilling biblical values and saying, hey, here's how you can follow Jesus where you're at right now. And in your high school, here's how some daily practices of following Jesus at your age now. And it doesn't have to be, but it shouldn't be, we're going to take all the responsibility for making you a good Christian.
Yeah. We should interview a youth pastor soon and talk to him about like the problems that he's seen. We can interview Connor.
Yeah, that'd be super fun.
That'd be great. Yeah. I think, can I move on to like the next kind of topic? I think a problem that I see with a lot of youth groups is sort of one the kids can't help, but more of like what culture is set by the youth leaders and by the pastor in general, right? Because I've been to some youth groups where like one youth leader is super solid, and the other ones are just like high schoolers that never wanted to leave because they liked the community.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like spiritually mature
And they
yet,
haven't gone to
and
college yet.
aren't in a place where they can, or didn't go to college at all.
Right.
And they aren't in a place where they can like be discipling younger people because they're not taking their spirituality and their relationship with God seriously, right?
Right.
Their growth and their development, their sanctification, and so they shouldn't necessarily be leaders. So the culture that's set is very unhealthy.
Yeah.
I think that can be a case. So spiritually unhealthy leaders being in a role they shouldn't be in just because no one else will.
Yeah.
Right?
And then, but there's something where it's like, should you take what you have because you don't have anything else, or should you just be like, you know what, then I don't have leaders right now. Or you just say, hey, if you want to be a leader, that's good. I want to meet with you every week for 6 months.
It's hard to say. Yeah, I would say something like that. Like you can disciple them as they disciple younger people. Totally think that would be fine. As long as the youth pastor is being intentional with discipling that leader or the leaders as they like disciple the students.
Right.
And they have to be intentional with that. I think the other problem besides the lack of maturity in leaders, which I think a lot comes from age sometimes, but is what we just said is the lack of the amount of leaders, right? And I feel like for some reason there's a limit to the number of leaders that you can have for a youth group for some reason. At least all the ones that I grew up going to, it was like, okay, we can have a youth leader or we have like a youth pastor, and then we have like 4 or 5 male and 4 or 5 female staff, depending on like the ratio to kids and stuff like that. But it always seemed like there was never enough like leaders to student ratios, and there would be a lot of really cool leaders, right? Because everybody wants to hang out with them because they're usually cool. Like kids usually look up to them as well. They see them as like cool.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hang out with them. But I think the times that the kids grew the most was when you were intentional outside of youth group times to disciple that student. And we had a lot of, at least in my youth group when I was in high school, we had a lot of our guy youth leaders and girl youth leaders that would take students that wanted to grow in their faith, and they would have like one-on-one times with them throughout the week. Not every week, but like every other week, once a month, something like that.
Yeah.
Where they take them out to eat and they talk to them about how their life's going, how they want to grow in Christ, and they give them like, not assignments, but like challenges to
Like
grow,
goals.
to grow in their faith.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we can talk about it at youth group and see how we're doing
that's
and,
awesome.
and keep each other accountable and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I like that relationship, but it's hard when you have, depending on the size of your youth group, even if you had a small youth group, right? Say you had a youth group size of like 20 kids. That's not big at all, right? That's pretty small. You have to have a very small church, I would say, to probably have that size. Or maybe just not a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Too. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyways, small size of a youth group for the youth groups I've been to. 20 kids. And say you have a youth pastor. Youth pastor can't disciple all of those kids, right?
Well, he should.
Well, let's say you
kidding.
have like a youth pastor and the youth pastor's wife or something like that. And then they're both discipling the kids. There's like 10 each for those people, right? The youth pastor almost never is just a youth pastor, and neither is the wife.
Right.
He has like, the youth pastor / the administrative assistant / he does like a lot of maintenance on the church / he does counseling / he does a ton of other stuff.
And he might have another job outside of church.
Right. Like we think about youth pastors and we're like, wow, you work like twice a week. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't have a big job.
And you're like, I work 60 hours.
Yeah, like he has a lot to do. It would be nice, I would say, if that youth pastor's only job was to just disciple the kids. Because then, he could set up 2-3 appointments a day with all of his kids, and he could hang out with them and spend time with them and disciple them, right? If that was just his job.
Right.
I think that'd be awesome. If the youth pastor was that free to do that, like they had enough staff at the church that was the case.
Yeah.
You'd probably have to be making a lot of money as a church to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, and ideally, and usually if you're making a lot of money as a church, you're a bigger church. So
Yeah, you're a bigger church.
He still wouldn't be able to meet with everyone.
Right.
You know?
And so where I was going with that is that then the responsibility kind of falls on the youth leaders to sort of be the disciplers, because the youth pastor can't get to everybody.
Right.
Right? And the youth leaders already spending 1 free day a week, or 2, because they probably volunteer on Sunday and Wednesday or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Going to this youth event, and they're spending twice the time at church on Sunday, even more sometimes, going to camps, and then also sacrificing a Wednesday night to go. You're going to have to ask them to sacrifice another night or something like that, lunch break or something, to go hang out with and disciple another kid, if not multiple kids, right? That's pretty hard to put on a volunteer that's not getting paid,
Right.
and has another life. But I think it can happen, and it did happen in my situation. A lot of those people did that, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And they like were really intentional with their jobs and really believed in what was happening and believed in our discipleship, and which was really cool. But the problem is you can only really do that with one or two people, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's only one or two kids in a youth group that want to be discipled like that. That's possible. But if you have an actual healthy youth environment where these kids are growing and learning about God, then you should have all of the kids that want to do that, right? And we can talk a bit in a second about how to create like a healthy culture in a youth group, or what even the purpose of a youth group should be from like the very beginning. We can talk about that next. But yeah, I think like those things can be the problem. Like youth leaders not being very mature, not being where they should be, or the youth pastor not mature or not helping those leaders grow as he's trying to help the students as well, which is a lot to put on a youth pastor. I understand. Or also the lack of youth leaders that need to be in a youth group.
And it's not very easy to get committed, dedicated, serious youth leaders who are like, I'll sacrifice 2 to 3 days of my week and like a weekend in my summer, and I'll take off work for it. It's hard to do that because these guys they're like, hey, I have my own dreams I'm pursuing. I'm going to college. I'm chasing this. I got a lot of homework to do. I got a job. I can't do anything with the schedule. I also have these other things go on. Maybe they're trying to pursue something else, or they start a relationship and like, I got to dedicate time. And it's just like a lot of people, everyone only has a certain amount of time in their week. And so you got to, if someone's going to be a committed youth leader, that's like really exciting, but it's not, it's pretty rare as well.
Yeah. And as we talk about all of these problems that we see at the beginning, we don't want to like just tell you it's going to be about the problems. We're going to talk about good stuff later as well.
Right.
We love youth groups and stuff like that. But I just want to say, like, youth pastors have one of the hardest jobs, and youth leaders have a very hard job too. So we don't want to like make it sound like we're bashing on youth leaders or youth pastors. They're awesome. We love them. They're saints. They do a great job. A lot of them do. And so yeah, we want to like preface it with that, right?
Yeah, and like, yeah, I think pastors in general get like a bad rap. Like, there's so much that they do behind the scenes that no one knows. Like, so many pastors are working like over 40 hours a week.
Yeah,
and then they still get complaints on Sunday like, I don't like the worship. I don't like that song. Why did you say this? It went too long. It's like,
and it's emotionally taxing because you're being in charge of everybody's problems, basically.
Right, and you're spiritually like feeding so many people. That is a heavy thing. Like, I just taught this last week on finances in the SOME, and that was like draining. But I was only talking for like maybe an hour a day, and that was all practical stuff, right? And so it's just all hands-on, so it's a lot of workshop setting, so it's not too much under my just I'm standing up there talking. But also when I spoke on and taught on Luke and Acts, it's like draining, and then you're just like, oh man, I need a break. And then someone's like, so you do all that prep, and it's spiritually like you're being nourished by God as you're as you're learning, so you can teach. But as you teach, you're pouring out, and then people are saying, I have this problem, can you help me? I got this and this, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And so it's really important for youth pastors and pastors in general and youth leaders to stay connected to Jesus in a serious way, where it doesn't feel like, okay, I'm a Christian, so I'm going to do quiet time, but it's like, God, I need you, but there's so much that pastors go through that people don't see. And so I just want to say to anyone to church members, please have grace for your pastors and your youth pastors. They're going through a lot. Yeah.
So with that intermission, what do you think like the purpose of a youth group should be, so we can sort of define how to make it better? Right? So like, what should a healthy youth group look like? What should be the purpose of like sending your kid to a youth group? Should kids go to youth group if they don't want to? That kind of thing.
Right. I would say the purpose of a youth group is like providing a place for the kid to go and have fun. And here's another thing. Well, I'll get to that in a second. The purpose of a youth group is to like, I would say, give practical advice or direction on how the youth can be a good Christian and like love God where in their high school, where they're at, whatever they're doing, but also and like kind of teach them like outlines of how to have a biblical worldview, or how to have biblical disciplines, where you're like, hey, you should do this, and teach scripture. A pastor's job is to teach scripture and is to care for the flock, right? And so you should by nature just be teaching them the Bible, but also in a way you want to be captivating too, so you don't want to just bore your audience. Don't be monotone or whatnot. They just sat through lectures, and that's not to say sugarcoated either, obviously. You never want to do that. But I would say the purpose of a youth group is, one, to provide a community of like-minded or around the same age individuals to pursue Jesus together and show them that it's possible. while also teaching the Bible in a way that they can understand. Because there's some things that, as you might not understand one biblical concept as a kid, but when you get to an adult, you do. So like, speaking the Bible in a way that they can understand, you know. But I like, my thing is like, because we have kids in like nurseries, and then they go to kids camp, or then they go to kids church, and then they're in kids church all elementary school, and then they go to youth group, and they're in youth group all high school. And when they go to college, sometimes the church will have a young adults group, which is good, but oftentimes the churches don't. And so I've noticed that there's this huge like age gap between like the people in the main service and the youth group. And I'm like, well, where are all the young people?
Yeah.
And a lot of them go away to college, which is fair, but because of that, by nature, a lot of people should go to different places where their colleges are. And there's college ministries, I know, but they're going to go to community to find somewhere else, right? And so that's a hard thing with balancing youth group. It's like you don't want them to be at a place when they graduate youth group that they don't feel like they can't go to they should be ready for the main service by the time they leave.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, definitely. A thought, really, for a second, to challenge what you said. Wouldn't that definition kind of be the same as like Sunday youth group the kids have? I don't know if you had that. Like on Sundays they just had like youth group 2.0 for like the junior hires at my church, where it was just like the same as Thursday kind of, but on a Sunday. And if the kids don't go into like the normal church, they go have like youth group church.
Do you think they should, like, you're saying on Sunday they should go to the main service with their family?
Like, is there, just a question, is there a difference between both of those things, right?
I didn't even have that on my radar. I was only thinking like Wednesdays.
Yeah, I know. It's an off-topic question, but I'm just saying, why are we having an extra day a week to do that if we already have it on Sunday? You know what I mean?
Why are we doing youth group on Wednesday as opposed to like just have them in church on Sunday? Like have them in youth group on Sunday?
Yeah, because that's how it was at my church, right?
Yeah. I would say probably practically it depends on like, because I know the church I went to was like a couple thousand people when it was at the highest. And so because of that, and it was a couple thousand people because a couple hundred people would show up at different services, but they would have like Wednesday night services, Saturday night services, and 2 on Sunday. And so I would say at that point they're just trying to have as many services as they can do to feed as many people as are coming. And so that would be like, okay, people are coming on here on Wednesday anyways, and they're bringing their kids. Let's just we gotta give them a youth group. So if a church doesn't necessarily need a Wednesday or Thursday night youth group, I would say it would be fine to do that on Sunday. Maybe it's like, maybe the 2 days a week is not necessary.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm trying to like narrow down what the purpose of a youth group should actually be, because I agree with you. I think the purpose of a youth group should be like a place where kids can go to be in their environment with like peers that are like them, to understand the Bible in a way that makes sense to them, but at the same time is not watering it down enough where they're not growing. Right. In whatever context that looks like, right? It's just a place for youth to learn how to pursue God together, not only play games, but not only just to like listen to a sermon, right? But to do interactive things where they're constantly growing and learning about who God is. Like, I would say you shouldn't preach a 50-minute message to a youth group student. Like, you should probably do a lot of interactive things to get them to actually learn what's going on, because it's obvious our education system is broken, and that's what they're getting all day in the education system. You got to create creative ways to teach children the Bible.
Yeah.
Right?
And I got like, when I was interning with it, we would break up. So we'd have like maybe 15 to 20 minutes of the main thing. And then we'd break into little groups. So it would be like by grade, but also by gender. So you'd have 6th grade guys, 6th grade girls, and all that stuff. And there'd be youth leaders for all of those facilitating. But then you'd be like, okay, like here's what we went through in the message. And then what stuck out to you, and then you get them in a circle. And it's like maybe like 5 to 10 people in a circle, and it gives them a place where they feel like they can get to know each other more and open up and process and like really digest. And then the bulk of the time that wasn't spent in games was in like either worship or like the small group setting.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it's a really, really good place to do that, to have both of those things where you have both kids just learning about what it's like to be a Christian, but also being open and vulnerable about their problems with other kids that have the same problems, also while sharing like food and sharing like bonding experiences and games together. Just learning how to be a Christian, learning that fun is okay to have as a Christian, right?
Yeah.
And learning that like church isn't just about like being serious all the time and listening to the pastor speak for 50 minutes and then worship that's already boring for you because you're a child and just want to go outside and play, right?
Yeah. Or it's like, wow, this song is like, we do this all the time. Like, I don't want to jump. I'm tired. And then there's people jumping. You're like, I got to do that. And I think, it's like, And I love what you said about sharing food. I think that's so undervalued in like every setting. I told my plant manager when he would do like meetings, like every month we'd have like or every quarter we have quarterly meetings where we review things, and I was like, yo, you should get some food for this, because like people, I promise you, like you feed people, they'll follow. And like Jesus did it, you know, Jesus fed people and they followed him. He didn't feed them so they followed him, he just fed them because he loved them. But every time he's always breaking bread and he's like talking with them and hanging out over food. And I don't know if this is blasphemy, but there might be something spiritual about sharing food together, where it's like y'all just like feel more relaxed and you're able to process and open up, you know. And it creates a safety because for some reason it just does. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think kind of to wrap everything up that we've been talking about, like youth groups need to be a place where kids can go to be in community together, where there's youth leaders that are invested in the process of actually discipling the students, not in the place of a parent, because that's the parent's job, but to add additional support of discipleship with other like-minded students, where you're growing alongside as the body of Christ, kids, right, growing up together as the body, experiencing life together, sharing the struggles that you have as a kid, like learning how to be open and vulnerable, learning how to be a human being that's a Christian, that's created by God in this fallen world, right? There's a lot to unpack there, and there's a lot of vulnerability that has to be had, and there's a lot of youth leaders that got to be really committed and vulnerable, and really, really invested in these kids. And you also got to have a youth pastor that knows how to create a culture that is conducive to growth and the success of their kids, right? One that's not overtaxed by the other jobs that they have in the church, but one that has the availability to disciple the kids, and also mentor and disciple the other staff that are there, and make sure he's creating a culture of staff and students that want to go after God and learn who God is, and create cultures going after God, not just a place where you can go and have fun and then listen to a message for a little bit and then go have some snack and then you can leave or whatever, right? Like you don't want to like be void of all of those, of like all the spiritual things. You want to show that the spiritual is in those other two activities of eating and of having fun and of like sharing like those deep like problems that are going on, or what is God speaking to you, or how do I worship, or what does hearing from God mean, how do I read the Bible, like all of those harder questions.
Right yes. On. Good stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Favorite youth group game?
Yes. There's a lot of favorite youth group games that I had. I would say my favorite one, though, of all of them...
Or youth camp games, too.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to go with this youth group game first, and then I'll go to youth camp game. I think my favorite youth group game was... I think we called it China, or smuggling Bibles into China, or something like that.
That's racist now.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Ethan, it's not racist.
Basically what it was is our sanctuary had 3 entrances, so one in the middle, like straight down the middle, and one on the sides. So you kind of know how like a lot of sanctuaries have aisles, right? Like one, at least ours was like one down the middle and then 2 down the sides, and the sanctuary probably sat like 500 people or something.
Nice.
And we had big like doors on 2 doors in the middle and then 1 door on each side, right, where you could like go in just to make it more streamlined, right? And so kind of a big like pie shape, kind of half pie shape. And so what it was is you go in the sanctuary, and you turn all the lights off, and they'd play like some like disco music or something like that, some EDM, and then they'd have all these like flashing lights, and they'd have all these like glow sticks everywhere, right? They just throw them everywhere, and then they'd have this big bin at the front, and that was China. Like, that was like the China church, like the Christian church, right? And we would have these like little slips of paper, and they were like our Bibles, right? And you had to hide it, and you had to go through one of those doors and get past the youth leaders that were trying to tag you or capture you, and they were like the Chinese military or church or not the military, like police. And if they tagged you, you had to go back out and forfeit your Bible, so they'd capture your Bible, and you have to go back outside or something, or you go to jail. And so your job as a kid was like to like climb under the chairs or like sneak around the side so you didn't get seen by youth leader, and like dive and like throw your Bible into like the Christian church and see how many Bibles you could get in there before the time ran out.
It was really like fun. That, and that does more. That's like fun. But it also brings the reality and knowledge of like, hey, this is like, it's really hard to be a Christian in China.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And it's like, that's so good. It's like teaching them about the persecuted church without teaching them about the persecuted church.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. Favorite youth group game. Like I said, the church I went to was like a couple thousand people. So we had we had like probably 300 people in the youth group. And at one point they had a lot of money, so they made a whole arcade. So we didn't
Whoa.
have like, we had like probably 8 Xboxes,
Whoa.
and you could all system link and play Halo together.
Oh, that's amazing.
And they had different booths you couldn't screen sheet, so they had a couch and and like 4 TVs
Nice.
and like couches and like walls in between, so you could have 4 people on a game.
Screen peeking.
Yeah, and you just so everyone we used to have like competitions, like Halo
dope.
competitions.
Yeah.
But they had arcade games where you have the racing simulation, so you'd be in the car, the seats like moving and stuff like that. DDR, but they had a whole gym too, so they had basketball.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
They play volleyball and dodgeball.
Yeah.
And so I love dodgeball. Like I was like,
Wow.
I was like not good at throwing it when I was a kid, but now,
Yeah.
but I still loved it. I was like, this is super fun.
I would say dodgeball is probably the most classic, but never gets old like youth group game.
Right. I feel like a lot of people, like adults, you could be like, hey, let's play dodgeball, and you get like, you could get 40-year-old men who could be like, yeah, I'm down to play dodgeball.
I think in my opinion, the 2 best camp games and just games of all time are dodgeball and capture the flag for youth group, at least for me. And we did both of those at camps, glow in the dark style.
Whoa.
So we do them in
like glow in the dark dodgeball. Like
Yep.
you just see glowing balls at you.
Yep. We do it in the middle of the night. Everybody has to wear neon.
Oh, that's
and
fun.
you turn all the lights off. We have glow in the dark duct tape around like a basketball
That's
court.
so
We'd either do it at a
awesome.
basketball court or we do it out like in the middle of a field. And we'd have like big neon cones so
Yeah.
people couldn't go out of bounds, right? And we'd either play capture the flag or dodgeball. And so the dodgeballs would be neon, so you'd like just see them coming out of nowhere
just-
and just pegging kids. Honestly, as a youth leader, the funniest thing in the whole entire world to watch, because
Oh
some
my
kids would like
gosh.
some kids would take off like their neon and just like be wearing all black, and some youth
Yeah.
leaders would do it too if they saw a kid doing it. And so you just like see a youth leader like hiding the ball under their shirt so
Yeah.
no one can see it, and all of a sudden they take it out and just nail a kid
Oh, that's
who
awesome.
has no idea the ball's going.
That's
The
hilarious.
funniest thing in the whole world.
Man.
But
Yeah,
it's fun
that's-
too.
That's great. Favorite youth camp game. So we kind of made up our own. There's this one called Bunker Hill, and it was we were at this camp with a huge sand hill, like huge and like really tall and steep sand hill, and they had wooden bunkers that they place along it would be a full sprint up, and then like
Whoa.
halfway up are all the bunkers, and they'd hide. Every team had a team flag, and so they'd hide all the team flags.
Whoa.
And so you'd had like probably 14 people on your team, and there's youth leaders lining both sides of the hill and they're throwing water balloons. If you hit water balloon, you're out. But it's like how you have to get as many flags as you can in the shortest amount of time.
Huh.
And so you're like sprinting up this hill, like you and your whole team are sprinting up this hill, and it feels super camaraderie. Like, yeah, we're going like into battle, and there's like water balloons flying all over the place, and like a lot of kids love it because it offers a lot of like opportunities for like quote unquote glory, where it's like if you're the last kid on your team and you like grab that flag, and your whole team's yelling at you, like run,
that's so great.
and you like are sprinting for your life while every youth group's like every youth leader is like throwing and like
Wow.
beamers of like water balloons that you're like boom boom boom,
Wow.
and like you're trying to, and if you get hit you got to drop it, and
Yeah.
then and so it's just like the most intense like anxiety filled like, oh my gosh, like everyone's getting hit, and then
Yeah.
you're like hiding behind a bunker you don't want to get hit because you know they're waiting for you.
Wow.
It's so much fun. We also had this one called cage ball, which we stopped.
Nice. Classic.
We stopped doing cage ball.
Well, there's a lot of
because-
those games you gotta stop because
Yeah.
parents get mad.
Well, people would broke their collarbones and
Oh,
knees.
I know,
and,
yeah.
Yeah. So there was
For the same reason we stopped these games.
there was this one called cage ball, and it was we had like a kind of like a beach ball looking thing.
Okay.
But it was like 6 feet diameter, and like it was huge. It was like tall, maybe even 8 feet. It was taller than me, and like a
Wow.
lot of it was taller than people.
Okay.
But it's huge, and they put it in the middle of the field, and you're on a soccer field, and the goal is you're gonna try to get this ball in the goal.
No,
And
wow.
so it's small enough to get in a soccer goal, but that's even like taller than.
What's the cage made of?
No, it's not a cage. So not a cage. I don't know why they call it cage ball. There's no cage, but it's just a giant ball.
Okay, yeah, I know.
You're on a
what you're talking
soccer field, and,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah.
you're just like run. So what happens is like you have to sprint and get there first and try to launch this thing.
Yeah.
And whoever's in front of it is getting taken out.
Yep, they're
like
getting wrecked.
100%.
Yeah.
But my brother and I were in high school at the same time, and they split up by high school and junior high, and so I was on a different team than my older
course.
brother.
Yeah.
And my brother's like, he's like stocky. He's not weak, and especially when he was like 15, he was in strength training and whatnot.
Wow.
And so I saw my team running at his team, and we were like against each other, and I was like at one of the head of the pack, like sprinting to hit this thing, and then one of the more athletic kids ran in front of me, and I realized my brother was on the other side, so I backed off a bit, and my teammate hit the ball and launched it. My brother sees it and just like posts up and absorbs the hit and doesn't move, and it like bounces off of him and like takes out the other kid.
That's
and he just
hilarious.
like flips on his back and hits his head, and I was just like, my brother's scary. But I think that was the last year we did it because people kept breaking their collarbones.
That's great.
But once one person like I think broke their collarbone or something, or maybe like blew their shoulder out of the socket and we put it back or whatever. But there was an injury, and that later that night God healed it.
Whoa, that's
and it was
cool.
like amazing. So I was like, guys, we can keep this.
What's
God
the
heals.
like, kind of to end on this? What's the worst youth group injury that's ever happened?
Oh, I don't know. One time I had an asthma attack and I had to go home at a youth camp.
Whoa.
I couldn't breathe. And
Yeah.
I mean, me and my friend Tori were both like, we have
I think
crazy
we had some
anxiety.
kids that happened.
Like, I was like,
yeah.
and they're like, you okay? I was like, I can't breathe. And
Oh.
for like 4 hours, I was like, and I had some weird allergic reaction. My asthma flared up real
Dang.
bad.
Crazy.
But I don't know. We've had concussions, knee breaks,
Yeah.
collarbone breaks. Oh, one time they were doing a Nerf war in the in the arcade, and this kid like ran and wasn't looking and like smoked his head on a metal like stair or something like that. Like under the stairs, like turned and like hit his head
Dang, frick.
and had to go to the hospital, and it was like real bad.
That's rough.
And then they didn't do that again.
Yeah. Man. I'd say probably nothing that crazy. We had some broken collarbones. We had that girl's broken face. Stuff like that. Nothing. I mean, crazy things. Like, of
Yeah.
course, like broken bones all the time
Yeah.
and broken things.
Classic.
But no one died.
Yeah.
You know, no one. People probably should have though. Honestly, like
It's
for
by
the,
God's
the
grace.
things we did, yeah, it's by God's grace that no one died. Honestly,
Yeah.
like things were happening that
Man,
won't be spoken of.
We would go back from youth group or youth camp. We'd be like a 4-hour drive on the bus,
Mm-hmm.
and me and my friends would buy like Twizzlers or like hot dogs from gas stations and like, buy these things, and then wait, and like people would be like, "Man, I'm so hungry." I'm like, "You want a Twizzler?" Like, yeah. I was like, "I'll give you this whole pack for like a couple, like $1." And someone's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And someone's like, "No, I want that." And I was like, "Okay, $2." And we would just buy these snacks.
What?
And we would just hustle people on the bus.
That's hilarious.
And our leader's like, "Guys, you can't do that." I was like, "Wait, I'm making I just made all my money back. Like, I just sold this hot dog I got for 75 cents for $1.50, dude."
That's
like,
great.
He's like, "Guys, stop doing this." I have no problem. You're a socialist, aren't you?
That's funny.
Young capitalism.
Yeah, youth groups are great when you have good leaders and you're head towards Christ.
Yeah.
For sure. They're intentional.
We hosted Battle of the Bands,
Oh.
and we'd host Battle of Bands, get a bunch of local bands to come out, and then we'd give like we'd have like 3 nights, and it'd be like super intense, and everyone loved it. And so to get like probably 500-600 kids in there for Battle of Bands, and at the very end of everything, they'd be like at the end of every night they'd like share the gospel and like have a testimony and a gospel and an altar call.
Wow.
And like just reached a lot of people through that.
That's awesome.
Like the band Icy Stars won
Right.
that, which
That's
I think
pretty
they're pretty now big.
They were big. Now they broke up, kind of.
Oh man.
But they're good still. For sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy with them because the person who announced that they won was like, "The winners are my good friends, Icy Stars," and all the other bands were like, "Oh, your friends."
My good friends? What was that?
Oh, your friends.
Dang.
Oh, so we just and it was a big problem, and I was just like, I'm just here because the music and mosh pits.
That's so funny.
I'm going home to go to sleep. I don't care about any of
Yeah.
this.
Anything else you want to say about youth groups?
I don't know. Like,
a
I
hard
think
job.
I think everyone needs to hear this all the time. Take ownership of your own spirituality. It's not your pastor's job to make you a mature Christian.
Yeah.
He has a say in it, and it's an obligation he has to the Lord and to you to preach the word accurately and tell you how to serve God well. But it's up to you to walk it out. And God and the pastor can't make you a better Christian for you. That only can happen by yourself. So just be serious about your Christianity. God is serious about you, and so we want to be serious about Him. Other than that, nothing else. We're on all the social medias. Check us out. We got a Patreon.
TikTok.
Yeah, we got TikTok. We got
TikToks.
Instagram. TikToks. The Face Notes.
Yep.
Facebooks.
Yep.
All of it.
Spotify.
And Spotify,
Apple Podcasts.
iTunes, Google, all the other podcast things.
Yep.
Tell your friends. Tell your mother. Be blessed. Have a good week.
Adios, amigos.